Across the UK, this is Broadcast Revolution's Radio Road Trip.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Broadcast Revolution's Radio Road Trip. You're here with Shelley today, and I am very glad to be joined by Chris Felton, the presenter on CFM and a producer across various Bauer stations, Metro Radio, TFM and Greatest Hits Radio. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Hi, thanks for letting me be a part of this. It's great to be a part of something this year that's actually happening.
No, we are glad to have you, and especially because me and Chris, with our busy schedules, we finally got time to speak to each other.
I know. You'd think it would be easier this year because there's nothing else happening, but it hasn't really worked out that way, has it?
No, not quite, but here we are, we made it.
I'm absolutely great to be on.
No, we're really, really glad to have you.
Sorry, that was so Alan Partridge. I've just done a complete Matt Hancock. I do apologise. Well, I mean, it's great to be asked to be on.
Take it. We will take it.
You're very great to have me on.
No, it is really great to have you on. We love it. So, as you know, obviously, we kind of spoke to a few presenters at the beginning of lockdown about how things have changed. But, well, I'd say as we're coming out of lockdown, but we, tomorrow we could be going back in. So as things continue to change, let's say, I just want to kind of talk to you about what things have been like for you as both a presenter and a producer. And I guess the first thing is, we saw through coronavirus that Make a Difference stories were becoming a huge part of radio programming. Would you say that's something that you're continuing to do within your stations, or would you say it's kind of changing to something different now?
Well, we have certainly featured them a lot, and I'd love to say that we'd continue to do that as well, because obviously there have been a big part of various types of programming. It's a bit difficult at the minute, and it's very tricky with the way that things are going because everything is just so unprecedented. I mean, a lot of things that we will sometimes plan to do then get changed at the 11th hour, where we have to then make different amendments and arrange for different guests and stuff. And it is just a very, very, very strange time. And working in 2020 it's completely changed the way that we work. I mean, the radio, I'm still actually in the radio station. I'm still physically in the radio studios every day, and I have been throughout. But all of my colleagues are working from home. There's literally 5 people max in our building, and it's just critical staff only. And it has completely changed the way that we work. It really, really has. I mean, the shows are in some ways the same, and in other ways they're completely different, and a lot of the time we kind of just have to fly by the seat of our pants and see what's happening in the news and sort of make some bits as we go, in a way. And that's the beauty of radio, in a way, the fact that we can be spontaneous enough to do that,
No, definitely. And I know you mentioned there that you're still in the studio. Is that because of your presenting duties? If you were just producing, would you not be? How's it kind of working in terms of that?
Yeah, I'm still presenting in the studio. I have been all the way through. I was given the option to work from home, and a lot of my colleagues, a lot of fellow presenters are working from home. I mean, radio across the UK, you'll hear a lot of presenters openly working from home. I chose to continue to work in as far as and as much as I can, because for me, that's kind of like the final, the last. Sorry, I just ended up getting. Apologies for that. I'm just getting buzzed in my ear by somebody. I mentioned that there's nobody in the building, and yet the one person that is just buzzed in my ear from a different studio, not realizing that I'm actually doing this. Hang on.
No worries.
You don't get these distractions when you're working from home. Now I'm tempted to start working from home from tomorrow.
I'm so sure on that. Come to my house.
Oh, I know it's been like. Well, this is what it's been like. It's been completely different. But I choose to think that one thing for my own sanity, I want to continue working just to physically see people and have a bit of contact coming in. And even though there's only a few of us here, it's still good to have that human interaction every day. In terms of the show itself, I just prefer to be in the studio. It's what I know. Also, because I'm physically here, I can do more. I know that sounds silly, the way that tech is. You can still do a radio show from anywhere now, and it sounds just the same. But here, I'm able to get callers on, and that's been a really big sort of vital part of the show. I want to get as many people on air as I can all the time. Can't do that from home easily. And it just makes things generally that little bit easier. And also for the listener as well, there's nothing worse than here. Hello, this is me from under the bed sheets here at CFM. You can always tell. I sort of had in my head the time might come where I'll need to work from home, but I wanted to sort of leave that to the very last sort of option, if you like.
Yeah, no, I get that definitely. And I think, as you said, it's nice to be able to get the callers in. And kind of on that note, I was going to say to you, for you at the moment more than ever, I guess, is it more important for you to have those local case studies kind of guests, or are you still looking out for the celebs?
Well, it's a really funny one, because the way that this year's been, a lot of the celebs, if you like, have sort of gone into hiding, and a lot of the ones that in a typical year, the stars that we would get involved with the radio station haven't been available. So I'm tempted to say, you know, when it comes to the celebs, we'll take what we can get in 2020. But in all seriousness, for me personally, it's the locals that I prefer the most, because that's when we get people who actually are relatable to the audience. You know, these are the people that kind of matter to our audience. I mean, you know, it's not an exact science, but I choose to think that our listeners would rather hear what's happening in their city, their town, their village, down their street at the minute than what is happening in the life of a celebrity. Because the lives, I mean, we've heard so many stories about these celebs during lockdown who have, you know, they're isolating in their mansions with their 3 swimming pools, but they've had to switch one of their swimming pools off to save a bit of funds. That's not the life that our listeners are living. You know, during lockdown, they've been finding it tough. They would rather hear other people in their area that are sort of relatable to them, I think, and I hope.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the life that many people are living, but you know, who knows? But I would say, if it's on the topic of celebs, if we kind of move away from the lockdown side of things, if you are, I know it's kind of a case of whatever you can get, but if a celebrity is attached to a story, what for you kind of makes you decide, yeah, this is a genuine collaboration, or no, this is just a random celeb?
It's always fun. It's always fun to chat to people who are names and who our listeners know and who they can sort of relate to. I think for me, if it's a celebrity that's got a bit of credibility about the subject anyway, or if they've got a link, or you can always tell when it's somebody who isn't necessarily associated with that. I'm trying to think of an example. If it's Cars, to get somebody who's on Top Gear is brilliant. If it's something to do with holidays and you get a celebrity who has well traveled, you can have a genuine chat with one of these celebrities, and you can have an informed chat, and you can ask them questions that they'll actually know the answers to. If you get a celebrity who you think, not naming any names, but if you see they are there because they are being paid to be there, you just know for a fact that the chat can only go so far. You're probably going to get from them the advert side of it. But when it comes to asking them about, have you ever been to, you know, South Africa on safari? The answer is probably no. And then it sort of limits the chat that you can have with them. And therefore, the one thing you don't want it to sound like, you want it to sound like a chat. You want to be able to interview these celebrities and have a genuine chat about stuff. You don't want it to sound like an advert.
No, definitely, I get that. And I think obviously that's something that, you know, as a PR company, we look to really make sure that there is a genuine link between stories, and if there is a celeb as part of that. But then I guess moving away from the celeb side of things, we've seen a lot of experts kind of come to the forefront through the pandemic, because they're the ones, you know, with the most information about, well, everything at the moment. Would you say that you've kind of seen that across your shows? And do you think experts in various fields will be guests that people want more on their shows?
I haven't featured a great many personally, and it's just purely because of the type of show that I do. It's a music-led show. Having said that, we have featured the odd one on the talk show that I produce. So we have featured them. And I find it's good to get a balance between the experts and the genuine callers. I think there's always a sway towards the callers being our preferred angle, because then you're getting people, just ordinary people who are in the same boat, and they're singing from the same hymn sheet as our listeners. A lot of the times with certain experts, you know, I think it's to do with the fact that 2020 has gone the way that it has. I don't know whether people necessarily know whether to believe one expert, because everybody's an expert this year on things. One person's opinion so differs from the next person's. There can be an element of mistrust with certain ones. I mean, none that spring to mind, of course, but just in general, when you consume in the media and you see that they are joined by a certain expert, you think, okay, what's this person's take on it? And then it just completely contradicts the next one. And I think we're just in a bit of a stage now where we're making it up as we go along, really, in some respects.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do think we're kind of just going with the flow, seeing day by day, so many new things are happening.
Yeah.
We're seeing kind of how things are changing and what works in that sense. And I guess on that, usually around, well, I say around this sort of time, maybe, in a month or two or so, we'd be looking at big events like Christmas planning and programming. Is that going to be different for you guys this year? How have kind of these big events that are happening throughout the year maybe changed, or are they not changed? Are they the same as they would usually be?
No, I wish they've massively, massively changed. I mean, to be honest, there's nothing in the diary. There's very little in the diary. There really is, just because we don't know what we can do in terms of radio station activity. I mean, usually we have big radio station events at this time of year. We do big scale events with, thousands of people around Halloween, bonfire night, Christmas goes without saying. You've got your countless Christmas light switch-ons. You've got all of your events that happen around the area. This year they're gone. They're non-existent at the minute. We don't know how they're going to happen. If they are taking place, they're taking place virtually. The Great North Run is one of the biggest events that we have in the calendar every single year. We always go full out that weekend. We cover it. We're live from the start, the middle, the finish. We really go to town on that. It's a full team affair. And of course, this year it wasn't on. So what we did instead was obviously the virtual Great North Run took place. So our listeners, a lot of them were out doing their own fitness challenges in their homes, trying to match the miles that they would normally do across the Great North Run. As a radio station, we did like a massive best of show where we just featured the reason why the Great North Run is so important to the people of the region, the Northeast. And we did a full show on past moments, best bits across the years, featuring people chatting about what it means to them. We got the celebrities that have ran it. We had heard from them. We had them on the show. We had Ant and Dec chatting about, because they've started it and they've been a part of it for many years. So we just did we did a big sort of best of show, but it's just, we're just itching to get back to normality. I mean, normally this time of year, we'd be filling our diary up now, planning things for, Halloween. We've been known to do like radio ghost hunts. I mean, what better than doing that sort of stuff around Halloween? None of that happening this year. And it's just gutting, really, that we can't, because those are the exciting moments working in radio across the air. It's these events that make it, you really look forward to these things because they're just so different and so much fun to do.
Yeah, and I think, I'm just thinking, how then, as a presenter, as a producer, not knowing what you can and can't do, I guess you kind of have to put some thought into the different ways that you can make it exciting for your listeners. I know this is obviously a question like how long is a piece of string, but what kind of plans do you have, or what kind of stories would you like to bring in, that although you can't do these big events in the same way, you can kind of keep up that excitement and the difference for your listeners?
I think it's cool to see what people are doing that's a little bit different. What things are people actually doing themselves at home virtually? How are people still enjoying Halloween this year? How are people doing bonfire night? We can't meet up in massive crowds to watch a Christmas light switch on. So what specific things are people doing? If we can find out about a woman who lives in our area who has already got her Christmas decorations up in September, and she thinks, you know what, it's 2020, to hell with it, I'm writing the rest of the year off, I'm putting the decorations up in September. We want to speak to these people, because these are the people that then our audience hear and go, oh God, I know that person, I live along the street from her, she's already got a tree up, yeah, I've seen it. It's those sorts of things that we're looking for now, to find the people who are specifically doing anything to break the mold. We're very, every day in the news we're hearing kind of the same doom and gloom and things that are happening. We want to hear and we want to speak to these people who are thinking, you know what, no, I'm gonna do something a little bit different, something a bit cool, just to kind of break the trend of the fact that there's nothing happening in the year. Well, no, I'm going to make sure that there is stuff happening on my street. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. In terms of the various calls that we can get on, it's also good to get a distraction as well. Sometimes it's good to just come on air and completely ignore what's happening in the world and do something completely, utterly, totally random and just get people distracted from it for 20 minutes. Sometimes that's just as good as anything else.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of special about regional radio, in the sense of you do get to hear the real stories of the people, and as you say, those things that are different that they are doing. Would you say maybe that it is the people that is the kind of best thing about local regional radio?
100%. for me, it's all about the people. I thrive on getting callers on and chatting to people. That's just my thing. I just think that the people of the Northeast, the people who listen to the show, have got far more interesting, far more exciting, far more real, genuine stories than I'll ever have. And it's the best thing in the world to be able to get them on and share their stories, because they're the funniest, they're the brightest, they're just the most real people in the world. And that is the joy of radio for me, live radio, getting callers on, asking them a question. Because in the Northeast, if you ask them a question, they'll blimmin' tell you. They will tell you everything and anything about their lives. And it's just so entertaining. You can just sit back and go, oh my God, these people are just brilliant. And when it comes to even the heavier stuff, obviously this year's been very tricky and troubling for people. And we've had people on air telling us how tricky and how bad it's been for them. And the stories that have come out on air have just been, mouth dropping, really. I mean, they leave you lost for words. They really do. But with the callers that we get on, you can just let them chat. You can just let people tell you what's happening to them. And it's the biggest honor, really, that people will still ring a radio station and share their life with you. I think it's just it's super important. I would hate to be. That's why I'm still in the studio every day, whereas a lot of radio presenters and producers have opted to work from home. For me, I wouldn't be able to get callers on if I was at home. And then that's why it's so important to continue to keep a little bit of normality,
Chris, can I just say, I would vote for you to be the mayor of the Northeast. I'd back you. Me, a girl, born and bred London girl, to move to the Northeast. And I don't know if you'd ever be able to get me out of London, but you're really convincing me out there.
I'm telling you, the people are special, and you've always got a pride for where you live, and this applies to anywhere across the country. Although I will say, the Northeast is very, very special. I mean, even just going back to the Great North Run special feature that we did the other week, the amount of people that will talk and tell you why it means so much to them. It's about this sense of community, and we've got communities that aren't being represented that much in radio across the UK anymore because of various changes to what radio has become. We're in the Northeast, we're so fortunate to still be able to have the idea, have these communities on air where we can get people on the air and do phone-ins and get people sharing their stories. And with regards to like the phone-in that we do, we get people on air, and it does create a sense of belonging. It becomes this place where, every week people will tune in because that's their community. It's on the radio. It's being represented on the radio, and they feel like they have got this friends who they've never met, but yet every week on the radio they communicate with their friends that way. And especially during lockdown, a lot of people have found real comfort from that. The Northeast just gives you, people in the Northeast just give you the best stories. It's as simple as that way. I mean, you can tell here we're in an area of chatterers. And it's just the biggest thrill in the world to be part of it,
Listen, there's nothing wrong with being a chatter. You'd rather be a chatter than be a boring person.
Well, in the Northeast, it's always been known that, like, if you are lost, people in other parts of the country will tell you where you need to go. In the Northeast, they will take you where you need to go. If you are lost on the street in the Northeast, somebody will get you by the hand and they'll go, right, I'll walk you down. I'm on my way. I'm going that way anyway. And they will chat to you the entire journey. And you might not want it, but that's what they'll do anyway, because we're just friendly like that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be taking a trip up there.
Oh, you've got to.
I've got to. I've got to. As in, I'm going to commit and I'll come and visit you at the station.
Oh, you'll have to wait until the restrictions are over.
Of course.
Our engineer won't let you in. He sanitizes everything daily.
We'll plan it for 2022.
We'll have to. Oh, it's just to me, it's home. I'm working. I'm so lucky to be involved with the radio station that I grew up listening to. It's my hometown radio station. And it's still the biggest honor every day to work here. And I don't ever for a second take it for granted, because I grew up listening to, callers on the radio, presenters on the radio that I'm now lucky enough to call my colleagues. And the callers that we've had, the callers have obviously changed over the years, but the spirit of the Northeast hasn't. It's still represented on this radio station every day. And we're just, our aim is to keep that and never lose that, because it's so important. We want our listeners to tune in and realize that this is the radio station for them. It's their local station. It's their regional station. And we're just honored to have them at the other end of the radio.
Well, on that note, as in, obviously you said you grew up listening to the station, now you're obviously working there. What would you say your proudest moment in radio has been?
I suppose I mean I don't want the Great North Run. I keep going back to because it means so much to the people of the Northeast. So for me, when I grew up listening to Metro, and I'd listen to the Great North Run coverage every year, and then I'd start working here, and then I would produce that show. So I'd be at the other end of the radio desk, whereas the presenters who I'd grown up with were presenting and commentating from the start line. I got the chance to present on the start line of the Great North Run a few years ago, and I have done for the last few years. That first time I did it, standing on the start line of the Great North Run, looking out at like 57,000 runners, knowing what it means to the people here, to the listeners, and yet being trusted by the radio station to be the voice that basically is there at the start of that event is just single-handedly one of the, if not the proudest moment, because it was just a bit of a sense of full circle, a bit of fulfillment. I'm being trusted to do this. What? Me? Really? What? You're kidding. It's the Olympics of the Northeast every year. It's not a sporting event. It just happens to be a sporting event. It's an event that brings everybody together, and it's so important to the people here. It's vital. And for me to be trusted just to stand at the start line and just talk. It was a real moment for me, that the chance to be trusted not to dry up, really. It was just
it sounds
special.
Very special. It really does.
It was a special moment. I mean, there's been times I got the chance to present Night Owls, the talk show, which is the reason I'm in radio. I found that show as a 10-year-old. I started listening to that when I was 10. Supposed to be going to bed to go to school the next day, but I was listening under the bed covers with my little cassette Walkman, which I still have. I then got the chance to present that show. I finally, after 14, 15 years of trying nothing else, they let me do it. And that there was, again, just still to this day, if they could have offered me a national breakfast show or one night doing that talk show, Night Owls, and I would have chosen Night Owls. And it was just amazing. It was just the biggest thrill. Probably unbeatable for me, that, really.
Oh, what about your funniest moment?
Oh, the funniest moments are, they always come down to the callers. It's the things that people say on the radio, or it's the fact that things that they say that you don't expect them to say. For example, it's also the outtakes. So it's the stuff that you don't get to hear about. That's funny. One funny moment we had was quite recently, actually. We had a caller ring in. I was on air during the drive time show, the home run, and I had somebody ring in saying there's an emu loose on the A1. And we get these calls a lot. Oh, yeah. So the A1, the main motorway, an emu on the side of the A1, because I'm doing travel updates every 20 minutes. So I'm saying, if there's anything happening where you are, give us a ring. Let us know what's happening on the road. This caller rings in. There's an emu loose on the A1. I'm like, yeah, of course there is. Thanks for calling. Bye. Next caller. Yeah, I'm just ringing to let you know there's an emu loose on the A1. I'm like, oh, this is good. These people are good. There's obviously 2 or 3 of them ringing at the same time. They've put a bit of thought into this. Yeah, brilliant. Bye. Next caller. This was about 2 minutes later. Next caller. There's an emu loose on the A1. Have you heard about it? Hey, these guys are putting some real effort in here. They're actually like getting different people on different phones. Proper. You'd think, because you're thinking, okay, by the 5th call, I started Googling it, thinking, what's going on here? And then I took to Twitter, and genuinely, it was trending. There was people on Twitter. There was an emu loose on the A1. I'd ignored it for the best part of 20 minutes, not mentioning it. It was causing standstill traffic. And I'm just like, well, you wouldn't, would you? An emu on the A1. I mean, because obviously.
Where did it come from?
It escaped from a local like farm area in Northumberland. I say escaped. They had it as like a pet or whatever. It had gone over the fence and it had gone onto the main carriageway. It was in a lay-by. But it was just the way that people were ringing it in. It was just so matter of fact. Like people are ringing in, they'll say, yeah, there's a broken down lorry. It's got its tire off. And you'll go, yeah, great, thank you. They were just so matter of fact about it. There's an emu here. Once thought I'd let you know it's causing tailbacks. So then I had to go on air and sort of say, right, listen, I don't know if I'm being wound up here, because it was still not confirmed anywhere. We didn't have it on our official sources. So I'm like, listen, there might be an emu loose on the A1. There might not. I'd appreciate if you could ring in and tell me. And then people were ringing in, just having my life. And that last, and then a couple of weeks later, there was some zoo that had been traveling through the region. And it got to like Northumberland, where they'd all stopped for like a tea break, and here they had all of these carriages, and they genuinely had zoo animals like elephants and lions in cages. So then people were ringing in about that, because it had stopped the traffic while people were stopping to look. And you're just thinking, it comes with an element of risk opening the phone lines sometimes, but it's just a funny moment. Sometimes people will like ring in and you have to cut them off, and you'll have people, especially on a phone-in show at the minute, because people are so opinionated. You've got politics going on, and you've got people talking about the government and the way things are going. We had somebody ring in and just get so up a height. They were shouting. Eventually the argument wasn't being won, so it turned into, well, I cannot win the argument, so I'm going to swear at you. Ooh. So when they did, we can cut it off. We can get rid of them. So we have like a digital delay system where you can like get rid of a certain amount of time. You can dump it so it doesn't go out on air.
Yeah.
So we did that. They swore. We cut them off. We hit the dump button. The problem is when you do that, you are instantly live. You don't have any delay, and it takes a little while for the computer system to build up a delay again. So in that moment, if you take another call out of air, there is no delay to hide behind for about for a while until it builds back up again. So we went to our next caller. Bearing in mind we just got rid of the swear word, and so what's your opinion? And they said, I agree with him. I think he's a. And then proceeded to use the exact same language.
Oh no!
So sometimes you sort of sit on your pants, but those are the fun things that happen, Yeah,
no, definitely, especially in regional radio. And then I guess, kind of, what would you say would be the biggest misconception about local radio?
Oh, good question. I think it's like when people think that we're not here, because let's be honest, call a spade a spade. There's a lot of radio now that isn't local. It's coming from central points. It's coming from England. It's going to Scotland. It's coming from Scotland. It's going out in England. You've got your hubs in London. London is responsible for a lot of the radio that we hear. So I think when we are local, a lot of the time people don't actually believe that we are. Like I'm saying, here we are. We're live across the northeast, or we're live across Cumbria, southwest Scotland. Let us know how it's affecting you right now. People don't necessarily always believe that we are local because they hear so much of it that isn't. So it's really important that when we are being local, that we absolutely, I was going to say hammer it home. We don't force it down people's necks, but it's important that when we are local, we are local. We're talking about the things that matter here. It's all well and good talking about things that are happening across the country and across the world, which we do, because, it's not just about, Maggie from Carlisle's lost a parrot. It's not that sort of local radio. We don't want it to become, because that's another misconception about local radio. The fact that it's just lost dogs, lost pets, and things like that. It's not about that being that local, but it's just about telling the people that we are here in their area and the things that matter to them matter to us. And it's just about reflecting that on the air, I think, because they hear so much radio that's coming from other parts of the country. It's good when we're being local, and I think it's important to people. I hope it's important to people.
And I guess, obviously, on that basis, a lot of the news you do get is from local people calling up, etc. But where else do you get your news from other than that?
We've got a news team, so the news is sort of all handled in-house, in hand by the news team themselves. Really, they are responsible for news. Sometimes we'll feed them stuff that comes through. Obviously, we'll feed them stories. If we get anything in from our listeners that's newsworthy or whatever, we'll pass that to the news team. But essentially, the news team handle everything. So, I'm barely a producer. The last thing I'm going to do is start trying to become a journalist. Somebody called me a journalist the other day, and I was so flattered by it. I was like, I'll take it, but I'm not. I will take it, though. I'll stick it on my email signature happily, but I'm not.
Have you put it on your email signature?
Have I what? Sorry?
Have you put it on your email signature?
Yeah, no, you can. But it's very tempting. At the minute, I could probably get away with it because there's nobody here to question in the office. I am probably the most senior person here. I'm probably the executive director, the executive producer, the station manager, the chief engineer. I'll put everything on there and just see if anybody notices.
And you can put Mayor of the Northeast on there as well.
I would love to put Mayor of the Northeast. I don't think that people would have me, though, because it's the thing about radio is it's all right talking the talk, but when it comes to walking the walk, don't know, that's a different thing altogether, isn't it?
And you don't want people coming on air swearing at you.
No, I have enough of that. But it is more entertaining than Lewis Capaldi sometimes, so you've got to take what you can get.
Yeah, exactly. No, brilliant. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today on Broadcast Revolutions Radio Road Trip. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks again for having me on. Thanks for asking. I'm honoured to be here. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Broadcast Revolution's Radio Road Trip. Follow us on Twitter @BroadcastRevo and Instagram @Broadcast Revolution. #Join the Broadcast Revolution.